Now let's look at the pros and cons of buying property versus renting property. First of all, buying property is one of the best investments you can make in life. In this video, we'll be looking at whether renting or buying an apartment suits you better. We look at the similarities and differences between the two and which option fits what kind of people and the pros and cons of each. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and like the video. There are special tips towards the end, so watch till the end. Apartment and house are used interchangeably throughout the video, as you can buy either a house or an apartment and vice versa. Okay, the first item of comparison is the initial costs, which are expenses required before moving in. When buying a house, you'll need to pay transfer fees if the house had a previous owner and isn't a new development. In some cases, you have an option to include this in your bond, although it's not advisable. Another initial cost when buying a house is the bond registration fee. This is for setting up your bond with the bank or an institution which will be offering you a bond. Another initial cost are municipal water and electricity reconnections. When renting an apartment, you usually only need to pay the deposit, which is usually just 1 month's rent. Now let's compare the operating costs of each, which you'll need to pay either monthly or intermittently. When buying, you'll have to pay for repairs and maintenance. These include mowing of lawns, the repairing of leaking roofs, geyser damages, paint damages, and other costs. These are intermittent and most of the time catch you off guard and without a budget. Good advice is to have a personal emergency fund to cover such costs. Another operating cost when buying is municipal levies. You pay this at the municipality. These include storage usage, waste collection, and water and electricity maintenance. If you bought your residential property as a sectional title, then you'll have to pay the homeowner's levies. A sectional title is simply a property inside a complex. These levies cover the cleaning, lawn mowing and gardening, security and outside maintenance of the complex, like cleaning outside windows and the likes. The next cost when buying residential property to rent out is tenant management agencies. These agencies are responsible for the acquisition of a tenant and the collection of rent from the tenant. They also manage communication with the tenant so you can continue with other business or work and not have to worry about it. They'll also assist in case there's a breach of a lease agreement, so you don't have to stress about lawyers. With regards to renting an apartment, there are really no operating costs involved. You only pay for serious damages to the property, and that's deducted from your deposit when you leave. In both buying and renting, you have to pay for water and electricity. You also have the convenience of a roof over your head. Now let's look at the pros and cons of buying property versus renting property. First of all, buying property is one of the best investments you can make in life in general. Property usually appreciates in value and isn't fragile, unlike shares, for example. You can only really lose value if the surrounding area experiences something dramatic, like a natural disaster. One thing to note when buying to sell, make sure that there is enough tenant demand in the area before buying. Another pro is that you can modify the house as you wish, provided it's not in a complex where there are strict design rules. A con of buying is that your bond is basically a loan. You still have to pay interest on it. The good thing is that the interest rate is usually less than loans. Bonds also take a long time to pay off, usually 20 years and sometimes more if you're not making capital reductions. Another con is that you have to stay in one place for the duration of the bond. When coming to renting, the big advantage is that you can relocate easier. After a contract expires, you can move closer to work to minimize traveling costs, move in with someone to minimize rental costs, move back home in some circumstances, or simply move to a cheaper apartment. The con is that you're simply paying off someone else's bond. This principle of paying off someone else's bond is classified under OPM, which means other people's money. It's a great investment strategy. Now let's look at some bonus tips and tricks. When buying to rent, verify that there are sufficient employers around. This will ensure that you have enough potential tenants. Another tip is to ensure that there is ease of access to public transport. This also increases the potential number of interested tenants. Also, when you're calculating your rental profit, make sure to deduct the municipal rates, the homeowners' levies, and the tenant management agency costs from the rent. This will give you a more accurate figure. If you're just starting out with a new employer, it's usually advised to wait a bit before buying. This is because you might not find the company to be a good fit for you. Also, it's generally a good idea to invest in a property which is central to an economically active city. As always, remember to subscribe and like. Thank you, and if you have any questions, just jot them in the comment section.
Don't start a business based solely on your talents. There's a better approach. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel with notifications on. Let's get into the video. Whether you're a sales representative, a receptionist, a programmer, or a police officer, the common goal is to accumulate money so you can live comfortably. Let's look at business ideas relevant to you to accumulate wealth. First and foremost, it's important to understand that we're not all meant to be businessmen or women, some are meant to be professionals. Secondly, most wealthy people have businesses, whether their own or through buying shares or ETFs. Now let's get to the gist of the matter. We'll touch on points for people who are employed and those who are not. If you're employed, the first task to identifying your business idea is to understand your employer's intellectual property. This is what your employer uses to generate an income which pays your salary. An important note here is to check the conflict of interest clause on your contract. You might have to work elsewhere first before starting a business related to your employer's business. After understanding the IP of your employer, understand why they pay you. Your employer has to have a return on investment on you. They don't just hire you because they like you, they have to generate an income from you. Either generate an income from you, or save on expenditure through your work. If you're a sales representative, realize that the products you sell for a commission, you yourself can own and sell for profit. Then you can pay others, instead of working for commission. If you sell cars, for example, you can buy slightly damaged cars, properly repair them, then sell them for a profit. If you're a programmer or software developer, you can find out which clients use your software and start your own competing software product after leaving your current company. If you're not employed, you can use the same train of thought as stated before, but by having conversations with people who are employed. Now you'll never run out of conversations. Also, people like talking about what they do at work, so they'll give you details about their workplace. Why does this technique work? It works because you already have experience of how to do your work. You also know the entire process of delivering your employer's product or service and making a profit from it. If you start a business based on your talent, you might often waste time and resources trying to find out how to make money out of it. If you're using your talent and getting paid for it, then you're in a rare win-win situation. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Please select another video from the channel to grow your knowledge. Cheers!
Hello, we are going to review the book How to Make Your First Million by Warren Ingram. Now, Warren Ingram is a financial advisor who also happens to be a millionaire himself. Now, from the book, we are going to specifically look at real-life case studies of normal people who were a minimum of 1 million through various ways. The intent of this video is to get you to also have a practical plan to get you to a million in any currency. But in this particular book, we're going to look at R1,000,000. The first person we're going to look at is Julia. Julia is a 30-something-year-old lady who is employed and married. She was like most people in that she didn't have an investment plan at all. She only knew how to save a bit of her salary. Before she started investing, she paid off her student loan and her car loan. After she met a financial planner, who happened to be Warren in this particular instance, she had one simple plan to accumulate $1 million. To invest all of her leftover money into exchange-traded funds in the stock exchange, which happens to be the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Now, let's look at terminologies. A stock exchange is where companies sell their shares and individuals or companies buy shares. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange is South Africa's stock exchange. Exchange-traded funds, or ETFs in short, are single shares or indices which track many shares. So you can just buy one ETF share and then you'll have fractional shares in many companies. A fractional share is just a fraction of a share. ETFs usually track top companies in a stock exchange, like the ETF Citrix 40 tracks the top 40 performing companies in South Africa. Now, if a company stops from being in the top 40, it will be removed and the new company in the top 40 will be added. Now, let's go back to Julia. Julia worked as a salaried employee, which alone is one of the hardest ways to make your first million. She was disciplined and made effort to be promoted and also invested her bonuses and increases. She started with a salary of 12,500 per month, and in 2007, when she was 25 years old, she was earning 23,750 rands as a gross salary. She invested the 6,000 rands she used to save every month into ETFs. She says her principles are very straightforward. You need to be consistent. You need to have discipline. That's the discipline to invest your bonus instead of just chowing it or going to unnecessary holidays, and enjoy your life. Don't live on bread and water or pap and eggs and archer every day. Well, good luck. And it took her only 4 years and 4 months to accumulate 1 million rands. So it's quite possible as a salaried employee. We hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe and like if you actually like the video. Please remember to subscribe if you're interested in more informative and practical content like this. Also like the video if you actually like it. In South Africa, you can use Easy Equities to trade on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's easyequities.co.za. You can also buy exchange-traded funds there. You'll find all links in the description. Bye-bye. Hello. Today we'll be looking at loans versus credit cards versus overdrafts. Now, credit cards and overdrafts are two slightly different forms of credit. By credit, we mean they give you access to money you don't currently have. In basic terms, they are both types of loans, but are different from loans in that you only pay interest for the amount you use. Whereas in loans, they give you a lump sum you pay interest on, regardless of whether you use the money or not. They can both be used for unexpected expenses like car repair expenses, unexpected medical expenses if your medical aids funds run out, or if you don't have a medical aid. Now let's look at loans. Loans are usually ideal for large amounts of credit paid to you once off, which you'll repay over a period, usually a long period of time. If you want lower interest on loans, it's better to let the bank have the ability to sell the asset you are buying in case you are unable to repay the loan. The bought item is called collateral in this case. When buying a house, the loan is called a mortgage bond, and for a vehicle loan. In both cases, the house or loan are used as collateral, and you have a better interest rate than with personal loans. Now, let's look a bit into credit cards. Credit cards are physical cards which are separate from your already existing debit card and are a type of loan. They have their own bank account number and are special in that you can make purchases almost anywhere in the world with a credit card, whereas you can't with a debit card. You have two options with credit cards. The first is budget and the second is straight. Now let's look at budget first. With the budget option, the amount you use on the credit card is divided into a number of months, usually from 6 to 60. Then a fixed interest rate is charged on the balance every month. Let's look at the straight option. With the straight credit card option, you don't have to pay interest if you pay the whole amount you borrowed within 55 days. After the 55 days, you'll have to pay interest on the used amount. A tip: ask explicitly what the interest rate is. It's not advisable to accept high interest rates. Now, let's look at overdrafts. These are quite similar to traditional loans in that the bank gives you access to money you don't currently have. The main difference between an overdraft and a loan is that with an overdraft, you only pay interest for the amount you actually use. Overdrafts are convenient in that you use your already existing debit card and account number, rather than getting a new account number and card. You can use overdrafts to cover temporary expenses without completing an application with your bank each and every time. Overdrafts can be very high interest rates of around 40% even if you are not careful, but can also be reasonable if you have a good credit score. So all three are different in a way and serve different purposes. Choose yours according to your needs. Don't be too scared to take on credit to start a lucrative business. Make sure the business will be profitable and go for it. Sometimes saving for capital takes too long. Now, if you have any questions, ask in the comment section and we'll address them. Now, let's go! We hope you've learned something. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Also, put your suggested videos in the comment section. This video will explain the practical main ideas from the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
What makes a company like Tesla such a big and successful company? What makes the company go on strong with a relatively new idea? Why does it invest so much money into engineering their electric cars? It has a single and clear reason why it started: to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. They focus on the production of electric vehicles. They aim to make electric vehicles better, quicker, and more fun to drive than petrol or diesel cars. They also venture into solar panels and solar roofs, which also corresponds to their initial reason to accelerate the global transition to sustainable energy. This YouTube channel was created to get knowledge to more people in the most convenient manner. We achieve this by providing visualizations of knowledge through products like book summaries. These are then posted on platforms like YouTube, so the knowledge is available to as many people as possible through fun and engaging videos. Those are two examples of starting with why, the reason, stating the what, which is the product, followed by how, which is the manner to achieve the why. After that, what you need is to sell the reason to people rather than selling the product. The product you'll sell after selling the reason. While on that, if you want to give back to the community and the world by helping to spread knowledge to more people, please subscribe to the channel and share the video. Also like this video if you actually like it. One important thing to consider when you determine why you do what you do is to do sufficient research on it. Lack of information leads to uninformed decisions and often to failure. You need to read books on your idea and read about the history of similar ideas and how they failed or succeeded. Then look for ways to improve them. Tesla had to determine beforehand that the electric cars business was a feasible business idea before they started with it. For example, they invested heavily into the research of long-lasting batteries, which would power electric cars and make the production of electric cars more feasible. That's a good example of surrounding the how around the why. In most cases, people know what companies do. Some know how they do what they do, but only a few know why companies do what they do. If you start with the reason why you start your company, why you start exercising, why you want to be promoted, why you want a lot of money, then the reason will inspire you first, then inspire people around you, and inspire people to join you. Great leaders inspire others by sticking to a single reason behind their ideas. The law of diffusion of innovation goes like this. There are different types of customers. These can be extended to types of friends you associate with as well. The first 2.5% of people are innovators and spreaders of creativity. These are supporters no matter what. Keep these close to you at all costs. The next 13.5% are early adopters. They buy your idea so that they are the first in fashion and association with your product if it succeeds. An example are some celebrities. They heard about the idea from the innovators, which are the first 2.5%. The next 34% are the early majority. The next 34% after that are the late majority. And the last 16% are late comers who have only now started buying smartphones, even though they afforded them before. A good example of the first 2.5% are strict iPhone loyalists who will buy the latest iPhone no matter what. While critics are hammering on the lack of features or the price being too high and some potentially inferior features, they stay loyal to buying the latest iPhone. Starting with why states the reason you do what you do, which is contagious to the 2.5% of your innovating clients and also gives them reason to stay loyal to your products or services. You must make sure that you reward the 2.5% of your client base who always support you by spreading your product so that you retain them. If you start with why for your idea, it will make it easier for people to buy into your idea because they'll have a reason to use your product or idea. After studying 200 years worth of literature relating to success, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, discovered 2 ways to self-improvement. The first is adjusting your behavior. Behavior is simply how one acts, especially towards others. Behavior can be changed almost instantly by making a decision to act in a particular way. The only problem with behavior is that it's temporary on its own. Now, the second way to self-improvement is something that lasts much longer than behavior and drives behavior itself. This is character. Character is your unique mental and moral qualities. You can define your character by answering the simple question, who are you? If you define yourself well, then you can answer that question without hesitation. To make your character consistent, you have to practice your character's deeds. For example, if you define yourself as a caring person, you have to require of yourself to list what you did during the week to help others. There are habits which are generally good for anyone's character. Let's explore 7 of them. The first principle is to be proactive and take control of your fate. Being proactive means external happenings don't affect your behavior. For example, this means you don't suddenly turn from happiness to anger because someone swore at you or insulted you, or suddenly stop investing your money just because one person discouraged it in a conversation. Focus on what you can control, like your character, rather than external happenings. Being proactive will strengthen your character, and defining yourself clearly will help you become more proactive. The second habit is to start with the end in mind. This is a global law and works in a variety of scenarios. Architects, for example, have to plan the entire building before a single brick is laid. Animators visualize the end scene before starting to draw. In chess, you think of the end game pawn structure and work towards it to win the game. The list goes on. I suggest the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek if you want to explore this habit in a bit more detail. The link should be in the description. The third habit is to put first things first. We have limited time on earth. This means you have to prioritize some tasks above others. There are 4 quadrants of priority you can use to prioritize tasks. In quadrant 1 are important and urgent tasks. If water in the basin is literally overflowing, you have to leave your laptop and resolve that particular issue first. In quadrant 2 are important tasks which are not urgent. An example of this can be sending out weekly work reports. In quadrant 3 are urgent tasks which are not important, like your relative asking you a question while you're working on a tight deadline. It requires an answer urgently, but is likely not as important. In quadrant 4 are tasks which are neither important nor urgent. These are just time wasters and should be avoided. To easily remember these quadrants, I label the first row as important and the first column as urgent. The most important of these quadrants, and the one you must focus on the most, is quadrant 2, which is focusing on important tasks which are not urgent. Another example of this is studying well before an exam rather than trying to cram everything in the last day. Focusing on these tasks helps reduce quadrant 1 tasks, which are both urgent and important, which lead to stress. The fourth habit is thinking win-win. Not every situation has to be a competition between you and the next person. Sometimes helping another person succeed will benefit you. Take this YouTube channel for example. It's a good win-win example. We read and study books, create summaries, convert the summaries into easy to follow videos for you. This gives you value because you increase in knowledge, sparkle your creativity, and helps you decide whether to buy a book or not. You're only asked to subscribe to the channel, which is free, so you get more value over time. This is a win-win scenario for both parties. You gain by subscribing, and it also helps the channel reach more people. You have something to gain